All right, so continuing our discussion regarding trust and faith, you are in good hands. Hold on, to make sure this is recording. Okay, we're good. We're live. Okay, letter number 7. By the grace of God, 7 Adar 1, 5711. So today is the 13th of Adar 1, so this would have been a few days ago, 73 years ago. Brooklyn, greetings and blessings. In response to your letter dated Monday of the week of Parshas Mishpatim and the Pidyon Nefesh. Pidyon Nefesh is a letter that people write to a Rebbe. It literally means the redemption of the soul. The idea is that when one comes to a Rebbe for a specific blessing, the Rebbe intercedes on their behalf in heaven and beseeches God for all the blessings for that individual. Typically, someone would give a small donation as a tribute, so to speak, on behalf of them, on behalf of themselves, or on behalf of the ones that they're praying for or requesting a blessing for. So the Rebbe is acknowledging the letter, the Pidyon Nefesh, and responds to the letter. One must be strong in his trust in God, who conducts the whole world without exception. And he will watch over you and protect you, and will ultimately settle your affairs well for you, both materially and spiritually. So first of all, one needs to be strong in their trust that God, who conducts the whole world, will take care of them. In addition, one must have appropriate vessels to accommodate all these blessings. So yes, God will take care of us, but one can't throw their hands up and say, I'm not going to do anything. God will just take care of me. We got to put our effort in. Now, you might think that the place to make the effort is first and foremost in the material things that we need to do, which we spoke about earlier, that one has to, in one of the earlier letters, that one does have to engage in the physical vessels, because that's what God wants from us. But what is the primary vessel? What is the primary tool to receive God's blessings? So the Rebbe said, these vessels are Torah study and the observance of mitzvahs, right? If ultimately we're talking about God's blessing, then what God needs from us, he doesn't need our physical vessel. He needs our spiritual vessel. If we do what God wants, God does what we want. Yes, the physical vessel is necessary because God told us to make the physical vessel, but the primary vessel is the spiritual vessels, which are the vessels of Torah study and observance of mitzvahs. And now the Rebbe spells out some specific mitzvahs, specifically reciting Tehillim, that's the book of Psalms, every day, according to the division of the monthly cycle. So the book of Psalms, which is 150 chapters, is divided into 30 days, and each day one should read the appropriate number of psalms that are associated with that day. Number 2, studying a parsha of Chumash every day from the weekly Sedra. So again, the Torah portions, we have the Torah is divided into 5 books, into portions, and each portion itself is divided into 7 sections, which correspond to the days of the week, together with the commentary of Rashi, which would be on Sunday until Sheni, until the second reading, on Monday until Shlishi, until the third reading, and so on, and studying the daily reading of Tanya as divided into an annual cycle by my revered father-in-law, the Rebbe Rayatz. The book of Tanya, which is the primary book of Chabad philosophy, was divided by the previous Rebbe, the Rebbe's father-in-law, into a cycle for the entire year. Every day there's a specific section. And these 3 things, the study of Chumash, the daily recitation of Tehillim, and the daily study of Tanya, these are channels through which blessing comes from God to us. By the way, there's a booklet that you can buy that has this already pre-divided. It's called Chayenu, spelled Chayyenu. They deliver directly to your house every couple of weeks, a number of, for the appropriate. There's other things in there as well, but it will give you for each parsha, each week, You got a booklet with the appropriate sections for these three things. So, in short, the Rebbe says the vessel for God's blessing is Torah study and observing mitzvahs, and specifically these three things. Then the Rebbe continues, why do you make no mention of plans for marriage? Right? So the Rebbe is saying that this person needs to be productive. We're completing we're deep into a course on advice for life. In this class that we taught this week, the conversation revolved around anxiety and people ruminating over bothersome thoughts. And one of the things the Rebbe says that we taught in the course is that the Rebbe was always about taking action. Get out of your own rumination and your thinking, which doesn't produce a positive result, and go do something active. So I'm speculating that in this letter, the person who was writing to the Rebbe was concerned, and they were cogitating over certain things. And the Rebbe said, why don't you make mentions of your plans for marriage? That's something you should do, something you should engage in, which will help you be productive in the world. May God help you to give glad tidings in the near future, and with blessings, the Rebbe's signature. Any questions or comments on this letter before we jump into the next one? Any thoughts, reflections? Okay, moving along. Letter 8, consider, is God really in need of your worry, or will he succeed in finding good solutions even without your worrying? This is a very powerful letter. By the grace of God, 13 Nisan, 5711, 1951, Brooklyn. Greetings and blessings. Your letter duly arrived, but numerous preoccupations did not allow me to reply until now. We know the Rebbe received thousands of letters every week, and even in the early years, the Rebbe was very busy with all kinds of different things, but ultimately the Rebbe replied. As a matter of fact, you don't need my reply, the Rebbe is writing to this person, because you have received a reply from my revered father-in-law, the Rebbe Rayatz, when you were here. So this is 1951. The previous Rebbe had passed away about a year and a half prior to this, in 1950, on the 10th of Shvat. And the Rebbe is saying, you don't need my answer because you already got an answer. I don't know what the context is of the previous Rebbe's answer, but maybe it'll touch upon it, but one could speculate. Nevertheless, I would like to reiterate something that I have already said a few times. One ought to know once and for all that faith is not something that is meant to remain only in one's thoughts. It must permeate the whole of one's life. So faith is not just something that lives in our head. If we believe in something, it ought to translate down into and permeate the entirety of who we are and manifest itself in our life in a very real way. You are without any doubt a believer. So the very first point of belief is that God directs the world. And if he is capable of directing 1.5 billion people, then your own affairs will certainly see the fulfillment of the verse, I have made you, and I will carry you, and I will sustain you and deliver you. So first of all, this is 1951. It's only 73 years ago, right? 1.5 billion people. We're far past that number these days. It's just an interesting thing. But as a believer, God directs the world, and God is able to take care of 1.5 billion people and 7.5 billion people. So if God is capable of doing that, then God is capable of taking care of me, each of us, the individual. And therefore, the verse from Yeshayahu, Isaiah, will be fulfilled that God says, I have made you and I will carry you, right? It's almost because I have made you, that's why I will carry you. I will sustain you and deliver you. Now think this over. God promises, I will sustain and deliver you. So think, can a Gentile from this or that land disturb God from fulfilling his promise, God forbid? Letting that sink in a little bit, right? God makes us, God sustains us. Is it possible for somebody else to interfere with God's plan? No human being can interfere with God's plan. So having thought that, now consider, is God really in need of your worry as to how he is going to run your affairs and solve your problems? Or will he succeed in finding good solutions even without your worrying? So we spend so much time worrying and cogitating over how things are going to work out, which is essentially when we're worrying about our own affairs, we're worrying basically how God's going to take care of us. But if God created us, he can take care of us. Does God need us to worry? Like, is it helping God? It's like sometimes your kids can worry, how things are going to play out, and if mom's going to do this or dad's going to do that. And it says, like, I brought you into this world. I've been taking care of you until now. Do you think that I can't handle this? God obviously is infinitely more so. God brought us into this world, and God takes care of everything, and God surely can take care of us. He doesn't need our worrying, is not going to help him. After all is said and done, you must remember that the Rebbe, that is my revered father-in-law of saintly memory, gave you his blessing, and the blessing of a tzaddik is certainly fulfilled. So the blessing you received will also be fulfilled. So as he mentioned at the beginning of the letter, you already received the blessing. So number one, God takes care of you. Number two, you received the blessing. So the blessing is going to be fulfilled. However, what you're navigating internally, until you see the fulfillment of the blessings, you have been given two options. Either A, you will walk around worried in case, God forbid, the blessing won't be fulfilled. So you're spending time being worried. And then when the blessing is fulfilled, you'll have a fresh worry, which is, why did you have to waste so much vital energy in vain? Or you'll be staunch in your trust and faith in God, that he will lead you along the right path and will fulfill all the blessings that you have been given. And then when you see them fulfilled in actual fact, you will be able to tell yourself, just look how well I handled this deal. I didn't worry about things that were no cause for concern. This is one of the meanings of my father-in-law's blessings to you, and not only as a blessing, but also as a directive. Be happy, because with God's help, the problems that you imagine to be so serious will be solved. You have nothing to worry about. You can be happy, and you can fulfill the directive of the verse, serve God with joy. So be happy, because it's all going to work out. God is in control, God is in charge, and it's all going to work out in a positive way. So be happy and move forward with a positive attitude, and to be able to fulfill the instruction to serve God with joy. And the Rebbe concludes, I wish you a kosher and joyful Pesach, and a healthy and joyful always, and look forward to hearing good news from you in the near future. This, you look in footnote number 62, in this colloquial Yiddish Hebrew blessing, Afreilich and Tamid, the word always serves informally as a noun. It's based on a comment in the Code of Jewish Law. But the idea is that a person should always be happy, should always be joyous. And the Rebbe concludes, enclosed you will find a copy of the Sicha, which is the talk of the previous Rebbe that was published, of Pesach, Passover, 5703-1943, which you will no doubt find of interest. So that is our two letters for today. Any questions or comments? You have a question?
In the Sikha from the previous rabbi, has that been translated into English?
It actually recently, there was a series of volumes of the previous Rebbe's talks that were translated into English. That particular one, I'm sure, is translated. I don't know it offhand, but if you're interested, I probably can get a copy of it to you.
I would appreciate it. It's
sure.
relevant before Passover.
Sure.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any other questions or comments? Fantastic. Everybody have a great day and a great Shabbat. Good Shabbos.